Good morning this morning, and welcome to today's newspaper review that we have this morning. We're going to be taking you through our newspapers for this morning. Hope you're well seated and would enjoy today's newspaper review, because we're having big stories that you would love to hear from us this morning. Welcome to Idea TV newspaper review once again. My name is Mary Ojumajoa. Today we're going to be taking you through the headlines of today's newspaper as we have here on our screen. And first newspaper we have this morning, and the first story, the big story we have this morning, is on our Tribune newspaper. On our Tribune newspaper, we can see we have a lot of story in there, but we're going to start with the first story we have here before we get to our big story for today. We have appeal court bans VIOs from impounding vehicles, imposing fines, and that story you're going to see on page 26 of our newspaper this morning. And we also have exodus of oil workers exodus of oil workers looms Pengasan wants. That's on page 6 of our Tribune newspaper this morning. We have article for Tinubu's nomination of former INEC chairman for ambassadorial position, and that is on page 25 of our newspaper this morning. That's actually a big one. Article 14, Tinubu for nomination of former INEC chairman. And we have on our big story, we have Ribaidu Musa Kutan on beats about end to terrorism, and that's on page 2 of our newspaper. Ribaidu Musa Kutan on beats about end to terrorism. That's on page 2. That's a big story we have this morning, and some of the write-up we have said here. It's terrorism, banditry to end soon. Terrorism, banditry to end soon, and that's a big one. And yes, we all pray for that to happen as soon as possible. We also have Nigerians can now sleep with eyes closed. Musa, that's the new appointed Minister of Defense. We're going to take a story on that. Nigerians can now sleep with eyes closed. Can Nigeria actually sleep with their eyes closed? That's another one there. We have a defense portfolio now in very good hands. Kuta, that's coming from Kuta, defense portfolio now in very good hands. What do you think? Like I always say here, you send us your comments, you send us your thoughts on all our social media platforms at Idea Television. Want to hear your thoughts, want to know what you think. Do you think at this point that Nigeria would actually sleep with their two eyes closed, according to what we've just seen in one of our newspaper headlines, just like the person just said? Then moving forward to the remaining story we have Tinubu names Dambazo, Sulu Gambi, Itan as ambassadors. That's still on page 2 down of the Tribune newspaper this morning. Then we have another story that will interest you here. It said patients alleged organ harvesting in hospital. Ekiti government begins organ harvesting. It's a big one. Organ harvesting. I think that needs to stop as soon as possible. What do you think about this ongoing organ harvesting? There is an alleged that a patient was found harvesting organ. What do you think about it? You have to go through the story on page 26 of our Tribune newspaper. We're going to take you through the next newspaper because we want to keep to time today. So we have our next newspaper. We have on the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see what we have on our Vanguard newspaper this morning. Bank, the first story we have on our Vanguard newspaper this morning is banks issuance contribution to economy falls 15% to 1.51 trillion naira, and that's on page 20 of our Vanguard newspaper. That's the first story you will see on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And we have on our big story here, we will defeat terror, restore order, peace, defense minister. Definitely, that's all we pray for, that's all we want, to defeat terror, restore peace and harmony back to the country. We have some little comments here we're going to be reading. We have terrorist needs to flush out, Kuta tells minister. Terrorists, they need to be flushed out immediately, and I think in full support of what he said, that terrorists needs to be flushed out immediately. And on the next story we have here, we have President nominates Guinea-Bissau and others as ambassadors. That's on page 8 of our Vanguard newspaper. And then we have a court affirms judgment banning VROs from seizing vehicles, imposing fines. And that's another story we have there. Yeah, this December is going to actually be a very nice and beautiful December. What do you think? Okay, let's go to our next story on our next newspaper, the Nation newspaper. Let's see what we have on our Nation newspaper. One of the stories we have on the Nation newspaper, we have Judge turns down request for Kano's relocation from Sokoto prison. That's another headline. That's one of the stories that is making headlines in Nigeria. We just learned that Judge turns down request for Kano's relocation from Sokoto prison, and that's on page 4 of the Nation's newspaper. It's an interesting story that you would want to go through and read on details what actually went down. And we have another story. We have court seals order banning VROs from stopping impounding vehicles on highway. That's another one. I think the government is really at work this time around, and that's what I would say, and that's what many people would want to see. Yeah, so let's move forward to our big story on the Nation newspaper. We have economic climate now right, said Idun Dangote Uzodinma. Wow, that's another story we have there. But before we go a short and quick break, let's take the next story, but not the last story on our Nation's newspaper. We also have here President nominates Itang, Chioma, and Zambazu as ambassadors on page 3 of our Nation newspaper. That's an interesting one. You want to know the nominees, you want to know them fully, and that story you will take them on the page 3 of our Nation newspaper. Before we get you through the rest of the stories we have for you this morning, we want to go on a quick short break, and when we return, we're sure to give you the rest of the stories.
Smart apps. Smart apps leverage AI and machine learning to provide personalized user experiences and automate tasks. These apps are being used across sectors like finance, healthcare, and retail to improve customer engagement and operational efficiency. For example, smart investment apps offer tailored financial advice, while healthcare apps assist in diagnostics. However, data privacy remains a concern as these apps collect sensitive user information. The market for smart apps is projected to grow to $62.4 billion by 2025.
Welcome back. We're going to be taking one of the congratulatory messages of the appointment of the Defense Minister Musa, Defense Minister Musa. So we're going to be taking one of the congratulatory message from Kebbi State, and it reads, Governor Nasir Idris of Kebbi State has congratulated retired Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa on his appointment as Nigeria's new Minister of Defense, expressing strong confidence in his competence to confront the country's security challenges. In a congratulatory message issued through his special advisor on communication and strategy, Abdullahi Idris, the governor described General Musa as a professional whose training experience and whose training and experience stands him out for the task ahead. Governor Idris said General Musa's track record, particularly his role in preventing armed bandits from gaining a foothold in Kebbi State, made him optimistic about the positive impact he would bring to national defense. General Musa has consistently supported our security agencies with guidance, encouragement, and moral backing. What do you think? We have many Nigerians supporting General Musa on his appointment, and he had a lot of congratulatory messages so far. What do you think? That's the reason you have to send us your comment. You have to send us what you think on all our social media platform at Idea Television. We wait to read your comments and possibly your congratulatory messages too. All right, let's move to the next newspaper we have this morning without taking much of our time. We have on the Punch newspaper this morning, we have newly stormed-in Defense Minister declares war on kidnappers. That is strong. That hits heavily. Newly stormed-in Defense Minister declares war on kidnappers. It's actually war at this time around. And like one of the comments we read, we saw that somebody said now Nigerians cannot sleep in peace. So we have on our big story, we have Tinubu's 65 envoys picks brass for Senate storm, and that's on page 5 of the Punch newspaper. Amazing. And we have Nigeria must protect democracy as she faces coup. That's on page 41 of our Punch newspaper. And then we have other stories here. We have federal government sets December 20 deadline to pay contractors. Federal government has set December 20 deadline to pay contractors. That's a big one. That's on page 29 of our Punch newspaper this morning. And we have VIO heads to Supreme Court after losing vehicles impoundments appeal. That's on page 41 of our Punch newspaper. And we also have Senate orders nationwide crackdown as